It began as an ordinary July evening, a soft drizzle over the Hudson, a faint rumble beyond the skyline. But by nightfall, the city that never stops moving was standing still. July 14th, 2025. A powerful band of thunderstorms rolled across the Northeast. Within an hour, Central Park recorded 2.07 inches of rain, the second highest one-hour total in city history. Meteorologists later said a pocket of warm, humid air had collided with a fast-moving cold front, an explosive mix that turned summer rain into a flash flood. Well, big waves. At first, it looked like any passing storm. Umbrellas bloomed on sidewalks, taxis splashed through shallow puddles, and commuters hurried underground seeking shelter. But then came the moment no one expected. At 28th Street Station, floodwater burst from ceiling vents and stairwells, rushing onto the platform. A conductor tried to open the train doors but couldn't. The platform outside had vanished under churning water. Dozens of passengers sat frozen behind the glass as brown water poured past the windows, rising inch by inch. In the dark, someone whispered, "Are we trapped?" For a moment they were. Across the boroughs, the same story repeated. Grand Central, Penn Station, and several stops along the 1, 2, 3, A, C, E, F, M, and R lines began flooding almost simultaneously. Storm drains clogged with debris sent torrents straight into subway entrances. Within minutes, stairways became waterfalls. Power systems flickered, signals failed, and trains screeched to a halt deep beneath Manhattan. By 6 p.m., flash flood alerts blazed on phones citywide. Dispatchers struggled to answer calls from trapped riders and stalled motorists. Above ground, the avenues of Manhattan looked like rivers of steel and light, cars drifting, horns silent, headlights shimmering beneath the rain. Below, New York's arteries filled with water. Inside the tunnels, pumps roared against an impossible tide. I wasn't smart. MTA crews fought to contain millions of gallons of runoff, deploying every emergency pump they had. But the water kept coming, through vents, stairwells, and tunnel seams built more than a century ago. By 8 p.m., entire stretches of the subway network were gone. Lines 1 through 6, parts of A, B, C, D, M, and F, all suspended. Trains sat stranded between stations, their passengers using phone lights to pierce the darkness. Emergency lights glowed a dim red over faces streaked with rain and fear. On the streets, first responders waded through knee-deep water, guiding commuters to higher ground. Firefighters carried children from stalled buses. NYPD officers helped elderly riders out of flooded station entrances. In Queens, sanitation trucks doubled as rescue vehicles, ferrying people through waist-high currents. Every few blocks, the whine of generators echoed against the thunder. The MTA later confirmed that crews pumped out roughly 15 to 16 million gallons of water before dawn, enough to fill 25 Olympic pools. Transit officials called the event one of the fastest system-wide floods in decades. Miraculously, no lives were lost inside the subway that night. But the storm's reach didn't end at the city limits. Across the Hudson in New Jersey, flash floods swept through low-lying neighborhoods. One car was pulled into a swollen brook, killing 2 people. Governor Phil Murphy declared a state of emergency as rescue teams worked through the night, closing highways and searching submerged vehicles. It was a grim reminder that New York's disasters rarely stop at its borders. By midnight, the rain began to fade, but the damage was done. Airports at JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark canceled or delayed more than 2,000 flights. Buses sat stranded, runways glistened under inches of standing water, and thousands of passengers slept on terminal floors. Across the 5 boroughs, the rhythm of the city had vanished. No rumble of trains, no taxi horns, just the steady wail of sirens echoing between towers. When the storm finally passed, silence fell heavy over the metropolis. The morning revealed a city scarred but standing. Workers in yellow vests moved through the wreckage, hosing mud from platforms, clearing debris from ventilation shafts, resetting drowned signal boxes. Pumps still thundered below ground, forcing out the last of the brown water that had turned tunnels into lakes. On the surface, families in Brooklyn and Queens dragged ruined furniture to the curb. The smell of rain, diesel, and metal thickened. The MTA reported that while service disruptions were widespread, no major infrastructure collapse occurred. Damage was minor compared with past disasters, but the message was clear. Even routine storms were now testing the limits of a century-old system. The city's lifeline was aging, and nature was getting faster. Officials called the event a warning shot. For decades, engineers have known that New York's drainage network was built for another era, one where 1-inch rainfalls were rare. Now climate change has rewritten the rules. Heavier downpours, warmer air holding more moisture, storms that form and explode within hours, each season pushing the system closer to failure. The July 2025 flood wasn't the first time New York went underwater, but it may be the clearest sign of what's coming. In 2012, Superstorm Sandy brought a storm surge that swallowed tunnels, flooded 7 East River tubes, and inflicted nearly $5 billion in damage to the subway system alone. 44 New Yorkers died citywide, and losses topped $19 billion. Engineers rebuilt, reinforced, and redesigned. Yet 13 years later, a simple summer thunderstorm nearly shut the city down again. By dawn on July 15, trains crept back into service. Stations reopened with the smell of bleach and damp concrete. Riders stepped carefully across wet tiles, glancing at water lines still etched on the walls. Above them, sunlight glinted off puddles that mirrored the skyline, a city reflecting on its own fragility. New York had survived, as it always does, but beneath the victory was unease. If 2 inches of rain in 1 hour could paralyze the world's busiest subway, what would happen when the next real storm arrived? When wind and tide joined the rain? Scientists warn that extreme rainfall events in the Northeast have increased by more than 70% since the mid-20th century. For New York, that means every storm carries a little more weight, every drain clogs a little faster, every tunnel faces the same threat. Pressure from a future it wasn't built to endure. This wasn't a hurricane. It wasn't even a named storm. Just 60 minutes of sky breaking open, and a city reminded that endurance has limits. As the lights flickered back on and the trains rumbled again, the question remained: how many warnings will it take before we're ready for the next one?